Well, let's bring in Jennifer Gavito for some analysis now. She's a former US State Department official and a senior advisor at the Cohen Group. Jennifer, great to have you with us today. So, we're hearing two different versions of the progress that's been made so far. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on what can we expect from the deal, and is there any reason to be optimistic since the last round of talks?
Thanks for having me. And I think there is plenty of reason to be optimistic. The fact that the two parties are both acknowledging that negotiations are continuing and making progress is a very good sign that we will eventually see some sort of agreement. The fact that, though, Marco Rubio, for example, has acknowledged that that agreement may first come over the next couple of days does reinforce the idea that the final details, the most difficult details always, have not yet been agreed to. And so I think what it comes down to is for Iran finding some sort of sanctions relief, some sort of economic relief, and for the United States being able to claim victory in some strategic manner, and specifically with regard to Iran's nuclear program.
But how do you see this moving forward, though? Because it's not looking likely that Tehran will make concessions, for example, on its nuclear program or missile development, and that was, of course, a major sticking point. So, what's a reasonable middle ground here?
So, first of all, I think that it is important to acknowledge that this really represents for the Trump administration a cutting of losses, as it were, an acknowledgement that further military action is unlikely to change the strategic calculus or lead to Iranian capitulation. And so, what they're trying to achieve now is the best they can in order to get out of this conflict. I do think actually that we will see some sort of agreement on nuclear, even if it is just acknowledgement that there will be continued negotiations over the next 30 or 60 days, however long this new agreement is intended to last. What that actually means over the long term is a big question, and I think you're absolutely right that we've not seen a lot of flexibility in the Iranian position. So I expect for the Iran side of the equation this is just an attempt to draw out these negotiations.
So, 3 months since attacking Iran, is everything going to the US's plan, would you say? And is Donald Trump, uh, I mean, is everything going to US's plan, or is Donald Trump losing the war? I mean, given the amount of sheer resources that have gone into this war and what Washington is likely to achieve at the end of all of this?
In no way has this gone according to the U.S. plan. I think there's no doubt about that. For the United States, there have been tactical successes, there have been military successes, but the strategic successes have proven to be extraordinarily elusive. And if reporting about the parameters of this deal are correct, very little strategic success will come out of the next announcement that we hear. For the Trump administration, what they are working hard to get back to at this point is simply a reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, which, of course, was open 3 months ago when this conflict started. If they can get a little bit of concession on the nuclear deal, then I think the Trump administration will call that success, but the United States is going to have to give up something in order to do that. And long term, strategic deterrence has really taken a hit here. Uh, the United States always had military action against Iran in its back pocket as a way to change the fundamental uh, state of play in the Middle East, and that is gone. It has been shown that military action alone is not going to fundamentally change the Iranian regime.
Now, CBS News reported that Donald Trump was preparing for a possible fresh round of strikes. How real is this risk? And is the reason that Trump has not pulled the trigger yet partly due to perhaps pressure from Arab nations? Because we know that the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia have made appeals to the US president in the last few days.
Oh, while I think Probably the president is having those discussions with the Arab leaders, and that certainly plays a role. I think that more important is the realization by the United States military, by the United States leadership, that further military action is not going to force Iran to capitulate. And so very little at this point would be achieved by going back into open conflict. So I think that's the reason that we're seeing this. That being said, I think we'll continue to see President Trump make threats about further military action, including as if this agreement goes into effect and as negotiations continue, there will they will want to remind the Iranians that that possibility looms out there in the event the negotiations, particularly over the nuclear deal, do not unfold as the United States wants. But again, I think the question in that would be to what end? What would be achieved by that? And I think the answer is very little.
Yeah, because not all Gulf states are openly pro-Iran in this war, are they? I mean, even countries that oppose the U.S. military action are also deeply worried about Iran's regional power, missiles, proxies, or even attacks on their countries. For example, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates have become much tougher towards Iran during the conflict.
Absolutely. This conflict and this potential deal with Iran leaves the Gulf in a very precarious situation. Regardless of what happens with the negotiations, Iran will, from this point on, always have the Strait of Hormuz and the ability to disrupt global commerce, but especially from the Gulf, in its back pocket. It's also shown that it can strike at the heart of the Gulf strategic plans, strategic objectives of demonstrating calm in a volatile region. And so for the Gulf states, they are left, I think, in probably the worst position with Iran not defeated, and yet at the same time with a more contentious relationship than what they had again 3 months ago, 12 weeks ago.
And indeed, Gulf states, still fear the total collapse of Iran, don't they? I mean, there's the question of a civil war, refugees, and regional conflict that obviously wrecks trade and oil exports as well. So, given all of this, how are these countries balancing ties with Israel and regional tensions?
So I think we're seeing varying approaches to this. On one hand, you have seen throughout this conflict, the UAE in particular really double down on its ties with Israel that first came about through the Abraham Accords. There's been unprecedented information sharing and military cooperation. And I think the UAE is really signaling that it sees its future in line with further coordination with Israel, with the United States. Um, but also potentially a diversification of its alliances around the world. For others like Saudi Arabia, which has openly been much more skeptical over the years of Iran as an adversary, I think it will struggle to find some sort of détente with Iran in this new reality. But for all of those countries, the priority in the immediate term is certainly going to be, first of all, projecting confidence, trying to draw back international investment, draw the expats back, and at the same time, bring back online all of the energy production that has been damaged or destroyed through the course of the conflict. So again, I think for the Gulf, this has left them in a precarious position. There's tremendous resilience there. I've no doubt that they will quickly move to recover, but this is not an ideal outcome.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. But Jennifer Gavito, former U.S. State Department official, great to hear your analysis. Thank you very much for your time today.